Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about functions in TypeScript, and in this video we are going to cover up these all points: functions declaration, required, optional and default parameters in functions, and then function return type, then more of the return type which will include void and never, and then the rest operator. So let's start with function declaration. Okay, so to have a better understanding of functions in TypeScript, let us try and understand the difference between JavaScript function and TypeScript function. In JavaScript, the functions are written using the function keyword, right? And then the name of the function, suppose here we want greet, and then the parameter which we have here is name, and then just console.log it with saying hello, and then whatever the name is passed. All right, and then down here let's declare our name, say greet John. All right, and let's save this. So this is how we type function in JavaScript. But as you will see here, that here we have got the red line. Okay, why is it so? Because when we hover over it, it will say that parameter name implicitly has any type. That means name has any type. It can either be number, it can either be string, boolean value, or anything. Okay, and this is not allowed in TypeScript, and that is why we use TypeScript. We have to explicitly define the type of the parameter. So here we also have to define the type of a name. So how can we do that? Is by saying that name has a type of a string, and you will see that here the error went away. So what we just did here is we just said the name parameter has type of a string, which in JavaScript we didn't have need to type it. Alright, and if I try to write any other type here instead of string, let's say 21, which is a number, this will throw an error because it says that we have returned the type number, and that is not assignable to parameter which has a type of a string. So this is also not allowed in TypeScript. But if you want your variables or parameter to have implicitly any type, you can just go in tsconfig file, and then here no implicit any, you can just make it false and uncommented. And the earlier error which we got here on name will just go away. But this is not a good practice. Alright, this is the difference between TypeScript function and JavaScript function. Okay, now let's talk about required parameters. In JavaScript, a function can be called with number of arguments. Okay, but in TypeScript it is necessary to declare all the parameters if we don't want TypeScript to shout us with error. What I mean by this is, if we have one parameter, we will only have one argument. Okay, and if we try to add another argument, alright, and if we see this in our terminal using the command tsc-w, in our compilation mode or in our compiler, we will get the error which will say that function is expected to have just one argument but got two. This is one argument and this is the second argument, which is not allowed. Okay, and to remove this, what we have to do is add another parameter, let's say last name, which is the type of a string, and when you save this, you will see the error went away. Alright, so it is necessary to have equal number of parameters and argument, otherwise TypeScript will throw an error. Okay, so now let's talk about optional parameters. TypeScript also supports optional parameters in functions, which are denoted with a question mark sign after the parameter name. Alright, so let's understand this with example, and let's just remove this out. And let's say name has a type of a string, And last name is optional. It can be or it cannot be. So to see this, we can say if there is a last name, then console.log hello name and also show us the last name. And else if the last name is not declared, just console.log hello name. Alright, and then we will declare this down here by saying greet John, which will be valid, okay? Or we can just say greet Jane, and whose last name is Doe. And if you want to look at this in terminal, tsc and then node index, you see we got hello John, which is coming from here because we passed the argument, this is valid, and then hello Jane Doe, which is from here. If there was a last name, then it will console.log this, and it did here, right? And if there wasn't the last name, it will just console.log name, which it did here, hello John. Okay, so the last name is like it can be or it cannot be. So if we just remove this out and save this, you will see that we do not get any error. If also we see in compilation mode, and we will not get any error because it just said here that the last name can be or it cannot be. This is how we type optional parameters. Okay, these optional parameters are implicitly able to be undefined. When you hover over it, you will see that last name may have a type of a string, or it can also be undefined, which we did here. Last name for John wasn't defined, right? But parameters which aren't marked with optional sign must always be provided. Okay, so now let's understand default parameters. TypeScript also allows us to specify a default value for our parameters using the equal symbol. So to understand default parameter, let's try one example. Let's say we have a function called greet second. Okay, because we cannot have same function name twice, so here we are just taking greet second. All right, and then we have name, which has a type of a string, and then we have age, which has a type of a number. Okay, and then console.log hello name, your age is, and then whatever the age will be. So how can we write default parameters? I just said earlier, we have to use equal sign and then its value. So let's say value here is 21. Okay, and if we down here declare greet to John and save this and run our console here with tsc command and then node index, you will see that hello John, your age is 21. We are getting that from here. Okay, so here we initialized age to a default value of 21. Alright, now what if there is a certain person whose age is different? So let's say here Jane. Alright, and the input value here would be 32, and that would be also all right. And when we save this and look at that in our terminal, you will see that hello John, your age is 21, which we are getting from here, and hello Jane, your age is 32, which we are getting from here. So default parameters are just used for initializing default value. This is default parameters. Okay, let's understand function return type. By the name, we are guessing that a function can also have a return type. Here the name has a string type, age is a number type, and the function does not have any type. Alright, so how can we have functions return type? Let's understand this with another example. And let me just write it here, function return types, to make it clear. Alright, TypeScript function can also have a return type annotations that can specify the expected return type of that function. So let's understand this with example. Let's say function, and then we have add, and then we have variables called x, which is a type of a number, variable y, which also has a type of a number. Okay, and then just return us x plus y. Alright, so this is basically how we type functions. So if we want the function to have a type, we can do it here by saying this: the function has a type of a number. And then down here, let's say console.log add x, which has a value of 2, and y, which has a value of 3. And then save this, and let's look at that in terminal. You see, we've got the 5-year addition here. Okay, so here it is expected that function is only type of a number, and if we try to write here any other thing such as a string, whatever, you will see that we will get a red line which will say that type string argument is not assignable to parameter of type number, which is just saying that here we have declared y value to be number. It cannot be a string here. So this is how we can return a type of a function. This is function return type. Now let's understand more return types, which are void and never. Okay, so in TypeScript, a function can have a return type of void and never. A function will return a type of a void means that the function does not have any return value. Let's understand it with example. So here we have function greet3, which has a type of a void. It will not return any value. This is just for seeing a message in console. It will not run anything different in our website or in applications or anything you are building. Okay, void type are used on event listeners. So when we are using event listeners, like when we want to click on a button specifically or any items, arrows or anything, that does not return any value, does it? So at that time, void type is used. On the other hand, the function with the type of never means that function never returns. It goes in infinite loop. This is how never is written. So it will throw an error. We have a message which is a string which has a type of a never. It will just throw something went wrong. This is how never is written. Never and void are not the same. Void is for the functions like event listeners, when we want to add something event on some specific buttons or some items. Alright, but never will never return. Alright, so this is void and never. Okay, now let's talk about rest parameters. Rest parameters are just like other parameters, but here the type of a parameter must always be an array. Whatever the rest parameter is, it has a type of an array. Rest parameters must be the last parameters of function, and there can only be one rest parameter per functions. So in TypeScript, how are rest functions written? They are done like this. Do not worry, I'm going to explain it what we did here. Here we have a function which is called sum, and we have parameter a which has a type of a number. We have parameter b which also has a type of a number. And then we have rest parameters, numbers. Rest parameters are defined using the spread operator and then its value, and then it has a type of a number which is also an array. So this is very important because rest parameters are array, so square brackets are really important. and this whole function has a type of a number. And what it's returning here is it's saying, okay, add a plus b and then the numbers array whatever we have. All right, and it's saying reduce. So if you don't know about reduce, I will ask you to please read about it in MDN docs on Google. Okay, so what does reduce do here? It has accumulator and current value. So I'll tell you what it is, accumulator and current value, and this here 0 is the initial value. Let me tell you what it is. So let's say console.log, and then we have addition of 1, 2, 3 and 4, and let's say we have 5 also here. So 1 is A, 2 is B, and we had a numbers array which is 3, 4 and 5. So the accumulator is nothing but just the addition of the previous value starting from initial value 0. So it's adding 1, 2 and it's reaching 3. So what it is doing here is addition of 1 plus 2, that is 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6. So accumulator is addition of previous value, and the current value is the value initialized at 0. So 3, it will add 3, 4 and 5. So this is how reduce works, and this is how we write rest parameters in TypeScript. And if we look at this in console, let's do tsc and then node index, you will see okay. So what we did here was we didn't said here sum. Okay, add this. Alright, and now when you look at this in console, you see we've got the 15 which is coming from here. So this is how rest parameters are defined in TypeScript. I hope you understood all of the topics which we covered in this video, and if you didn't, you can just visit my website and you can just have a better understanding of all these topics by reading it. And also if you have doubts, you can just ask me in the comment section below. I will try to resolve those. So I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye and happy coding.